Next week, the House Intelligence Committee will begin its probe into Russia's meddling during the 2016 election. Earlier this month, Roger Stone, a longtime confidant of President Trump, told CBS News he had no contacts with Russian hackers. But in an interview conducted Monday with our Jeff Pegues, Stone told a different story while confirming that he has had brief contact with Russian hacker Guccifer 2.0. Here's the interview.
So, Roger, you don't believe what U.S. intelligence is saying about Guccifer?
Well, I'm uncertain. What I guess I'm trying to say is that when you interviewed me several weeks ago and I told you most assuredly that I'd had no contacts from the Russian state or Russian intelligence or anyone Russian, that was a true statement then. It may be a true statement now. In any event, if I had unwitting contact with Guccifer 2, I have made the full content of that contact publicly available voluntarily. It is innocuous, and again, it's after the fact. It's ex post facto. In other words, the hacking of the DNC documents, the very crime that I am being accused by the smoking gun of being complicit in, had already taken place. I would need a time machine in order to collude. There is no collusion here, and there is no proof of collusion.
But, you know, the issue with Guccifer or Guccifer, whatever you want to call him, is not that he was the hacker, but that he disseminated the information. So...
Well, but there is no evidence that he disseminated to me, but at the time I had my one and only communications with it. It had long been printed and posted at WikiLeaks, well, and he had presumably provided it per the article I wrote on Breitbart News on the 13th.
Well, wait a second. You had more than just one contact with this person. You had 1, 2, at least 3 between August 12th and September 9th.
Right. I would refer to it as an exchange, and I have released the screenshot of that entire exchange. Now, if whoever in intelligence leaked this information, because you would need to leak it, wants to dispute that, they may do so. If they're claiming there are other contacts, they aren't. I'm highly confident that nothing has really changed, and I would be anxious to go to Senate hearings. Senator McCain says I should testify before the Senate. Game on. You know, bring it. I am ready. I've been ready, just as long as that same inquiry looks into allegations of surveillance of the Republican candidate for president. I think Mr. Clapper and Mr. Brennan and Ash Carter and perhaps Loretta Lynn and maybe even Obama himself, the president, should be in front of not only a congressional hearing, but more importantly, a grand jury. I have no fears because I know I had no meaningful contact whatsoever with any Russians. I clarify it based on this example, but there is no evidence whatsoever of Russian colluding with Russians to increase the chances of Donald Trump.
Well, I don't know. I was looking through them, and he reaches out to you, he or she reaches out to you and says, do you find anything interesting in the docs I posted? You reply, please retweet how the election can be rigged against Donald Trump. He or she replies, done.
Yes.
Right? So in a way, you're encouraging them to release more information, because on November 4th, they actually talked about the election being rigged. November 4th.
Yeah, that's called networking. Remember, I have no idea that this gentleman is allegedly a Russian. And in all honesty, most of the people who follow me and with whom I correspond on Twitter or Facebook do retweet my material. I don't have the money for the bots that David Brock and the folks over at the Smoking Gun have. So I have to rely on real, true believing patriots to get my side of the story into the blogosphere.
Well, did you at any point think it was bizarre that all of a sudden this persona was putting out this damaging information about Democrats, the Clinton campaign, specific congressional races? Didn't that come as a surprise to you at all? Did you find it bizarre, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, first of all, I don't know what of those is associated to Guccifer 2.0, my understanding is that his principal accomplishment was his involvement in the hacking of those DNC documents that were hacked. As I think we've discussed previously, I believe at least some of those documents were handed off, to a contact by a disgruntled employee. I don't know that he's involved in any of those other things that you enumerate, but I do know this: I have not coordinated or communicated with him or directed him to do any of it, nor do I have any advanced knowledge of what he or WikiLeaks or anyone else is going to do. I have neither the time machine nor the crystal ball I would need to have played the role that the smoking gun and their running dog allies in the fake news media who've recycled the story ad nauseum, are out claiming.
Well, but come on, do you think the media is really recycling this? You brought it up. Nobody pushed you to divulge your contacts with Guccifer.
No. I did not bring it up. I was approached by the smoking gun with a question. Here's the point. The headline says something like, longtime Trump activist admits contacts with Russian hacker. See, the headline doesn't tell you he may not be a Russian hacker, that I didn't know that charge existed at the time, so it was unwitting, that I had released the information, and none of it would matter because it all happens after the time frame that collusion would be necessary or possible. That's the part they don't tell you. That's why we call it fake news. Is the headline a lie? No, it's not a lie. It's just misleading, and it's using the most loaded words possible. I get it. This is the game. This is how politics works, not beanbag.
Well, that persona put out information on 16 different occasions. So it was actually more prolific than WikiLeaks in releasing some of these disclosures during the election. Did you know that?
I did not know that, but what I do notice is that many of your colleagues in the news industry have corresponded and even interviewed the person that is Guccifer 2.0. So it's not like I am the only person there seeking information. But I don't think it does not hold that if you tweet someone, you're in lockstep belief with them on everything they have done. Where does that come from?
Well, but
anybody. Go ahead. Anyone who I believe is releasing the secrets of the deep state and things that I believe the citizens need to know, I'm okay with that, as I have said.
Did you ever tell candidate Trump that you had been in touch with this online persona, this online character? Did you ever tell President Trump about these tweets?
No, because they were of no consequence. They happened long after the alleged hacking. I'm sure he has probably unlikely to know who Guccifer 2.0 is. And it was, I had even forgotten them myself when I was first asked whether my communications with him, I thought were all public in a series of just public tweets. Most of them have to do with First Amendment issues. And then I went back and looked, and I did have a brief exchange with him, which, as I say, I have made public.
You say that you were not the only person communicating with this persona, but were you the only Trump campaign official, campaign surrogate communicating with them or him, whoever it was?
I would have no way of knowing the answer. I know of no other, and I know that my communication was limited and specific, and the folks can read it.
Let me ask you about this wiretapping of Trump Tower.
Yes.
Does the president have any evidence of that, or did he make it up?
Well, he certainly didn't make it up. I think that this will ultimately be proven. I would remind you that the Watergate break-in was in June, and such an effective lid was kept on it by a government denial and cover-up that Nixon was reelected carrying 49 states. And then thanks to very tough, in some cases fair, in some cases unfair, but very tough and vigorous investigative reporting, the crimes ultimately came out and Nixon fell. The administration is denying all of this. I understand that. There will be a cover-up, and the hard proof may, as it was in Watergate, be hard to ferret out. But the cover-up never works. In fact, the cover-up is always worse than the crime. And therefore, the president has made a charge. There needs to be a formal investigation. I would suggest, since the rationale for surveillance of the president, in my opinion, was believed to be contact with the Russians, we can examine this question. I'm prepared to testify, as well as the question of whether the president was put under surveillance or whether the Republican nominee for president was put under surveillance based on a rumor, based on a political agenda that is still not based in any evidence.
Well, if he was under surveillance, why do you think that would be?
Well, it is believed, we think we talked about this, that that there was a request for a secret FISA court warrant. Now, in the FISA court, there is no requirement for probable cause or evidence. You don't have to justify, or as you put it, say, you don't have to give a reason. The reason, of course, would be published reports that there had been contact between the Trump campaign and Russians. Published reports. No governmental proof or documentation. Published report. So I think the rationale for their surveillance just collapsed, and I think their surveillance will ultimately be proven. I would not rush to judgment. I think this is going to take some time to play out. But the president has the authority and the means to ferret this out. I think a congressional hearing is, very likely to be a circus and be highly politicized, and each party trying to use their talking points. But I'm more than willing to testify. I really think that a grand jury should be impaneled to examine all the issues pertaining to Russia and potential conflict, all of the leaks that came out of the CIA about it, the illegal leaks about General Flynn, about this warrant, this FISA warrant that I believe covered both Donald Trump and myself, as well as whether there was improper surveillance of candidate Trump.
So, have you spoken with the president since he made that wiretapping claim?
I have not.
Not at all. No tweets, no nothing, no emails?
No, I have had no communications with him since that time. But I reject the idea that this is based solely on Breitbart News. I believe there is evidence of it. I think that evidence will take some time to come forward because the keepers of all these records today are most likely the perps. So this cover-up will take a while to pierce, and I would just ask people not to rush to judgment. This is going to take some time, just based on, 30 years in Washington.
Well, now, you just made a serious accusation that I have to ask you about, the perps. Who are you calling the perps?
Well, this will depend. If the surveillance of Trump and others was approved by a court, I would argue that it is gaming the system, but it may not be illegal. If surveillance was conducted and it was not approved by the court, well, that would be an impeachable felony. We don't know what happened here. We need to find out what happened. Watergate started out as a simple break-in of 7 mostly CIA operatives, at least 3 of them still on the agency payroll, and it mushroomed into a much larger scandal. We do need to get to the bottom of this across the board. Americans should know whether there was Russian influence in this election, and Americans should know whether the Democrats have pulled, the greatest political scandal, at least in American history.